Has anyone approached you to play Luigi? To play hot Luigi?
Anyone? Do you mean everyone?
I've never received more texts in my life about anything.
Yeah. But I don't think there's been any official
No
offers.
official.
It's just friends being like, hey, you look like this guy. Yeah.
It's just friends. Anyone who has my phone number has reached out about it.
You're like, where were you that?
A little bit.
Do you want to tell us where this idea came from and how these two fit into what that idea was from the beginning, like what you envisioned?
Yeah, absolutely. The idea came from the fact that I've been in a relationship since I was 18, a long-term relationship, a very loving, wonderful relationship with this beautiful woman here. And, there becomes a certain point in a relationship where you kind of realize like, oh, I'm kind of in this forever, maybe, potentially. And you realize that you made more of your life with this person than you have without. I mean, I've never been an adult without this person in my life. So you begin to wonder, like, I'm not really sure who I am without her, and maybe vice versa. I'm not sure where I end and where she begins at this point. Our lives have become so enmeshed. And that was sort of the jumping off point for this story. And where these two fit into it, similarly to the couple in our film, have been together for over a decade.
A lot of people come to us to act in things together, and we don't want to overexpose ourselves to the point where people hate seeing us together. So we're very picky about what we decide to do. And this one, because the characters have been together for so long, we actually felt that our relationship would lend itself very well to this specific movie.
Yes, and I do feel like we could relate to the themes of intimacy. In terms of what Shanks is talking about, couples who are together for a long time, you're breathing the same air, you're eating the same food. Like, I feel like I know we have a joke language in which we speak to one another. And those are the good sides of intimacy. And
What are the bad sides?
well, what does it look like when you lose your individuality, when it goes too far?
What are the bad sides for us, though?
I'll tell you later. There can be a darker edge to it. If you feel like you're losing your independence completely, you're losing your identity. I think that could be kind of scary. Or if someone who's not ready to fully commit, this movie is dealing with like fear of intimacy and also unhealthy codependency, like a true fear of being without this other person, even if they're not the right person for you.
You see relationships around us. Sometimes you wonder if their lives are so enmeshed, and you wonder if they're still together because they love each other or if they're used to each other. Mm-hmm. And the sort of high stakes of when your lives are so intertwined socially, familially, what happens if that separates? Do you lose half of your entire existence?
What is everyone's like personal appetite for gore, horror, squeamishness levels, etc.?
It's high.
Yeah, got it.
But we went through a journey with her where when we first met, she was not into it.
Look, in high school, I loved horror movies and I would watch them all the time. And I liked feeling really afraid. And then as like an adult woman living alone, I didn't as much like being afraid.
But there was phases where then we got to a point where it was like, I watch everything. And I was like, oh, this was actually worth you being scared.
Yes, she was like, tell me, is the artistry worth the scare? And that became how we judge it. But now I just get as excited when...
Now we're at a point where she's writing horror.
You're like, I got it. Was there any one day that was like more intense than the others? Like,
I think that this shoot it ebbed and flowed. I mean, there's a lot of high energy set piece moments in this movie. So for Dave and I as performers, I feel like every other day, or like
every single day there was something.
There was something, if it was physical or emotional, there was always some weird peak. And then like there would be one day in the shoot where we'd be like, it's a dinner scene where we're hanging out and talking. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, wow. But then right at the end of the bit, oh, and don't forget, we have to pick up this shot at the end of the day where something crazy happens.
But most days, we would get there at 6 a.m. and from the very first cake, our energy had to be at 100 and it had to stay there for the whole day. And so you wake up certain mornings, you're just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But then you get into it and like, it was just so fun and we were just so excited about what we were making. It felt like we were getting away with something. And so that just like keeps you going. And
there's something great about not having time to overthink any of it. And like us being so prepped and the three of us are so being on the same page. But it is funny to get to set and sort of be like, okay, are we ready to go? Great.
truly. And that was every day. Like you're super cut of every single day. One of you each just going at a certain point. And the very final day of shooting, I did a little bit of body double work for you.
That's right.
And I experienced 20 minutes of having to do that, and I don't
relished in seeing you squirm.
Shot in the movie.
Yeah, that was that made me put in perspective, like, oh, these guys are great. But up to that point, I was, what are these guys doing?
Complain.
What is a movie that you watched that made you want to be in this business?
I got a couple. When I was 14, I was working at this mom and pop video store, and it was actually illegal for me to be working there at that age. And so they paid me by allowing me to take home as many movies as I wanted. And it was the year 1999, which is like regarded as the best movie year of all time. And so like, this was my film school. And so the movies that I remember that like really blew my mind were Fight Club and Being John Malkovich. Those were the two that were like, oh, you can get really weird and experimental, and it's just, I don't know, it's really exciting.
Yeah. Ooh, good one.
Have you ever been able to meet any of the people in those movies since then? I'm trying to like hook you to like.
I mean, those are two of my favorite directors, but
John Malkovich is here.
I've met John Malkovich. I was in Warm Bodies with John Malkovich. I die very early too. You don't remember that? I'm in about 6 minutes of that movie. What about you guys?
Gosh, so many. I don't know. I think about like Raising Arizona and Reservoir Dogs and like Alien, Sigourney Weaver. I feel like there were all these women in the 90s, like Sigourney Weaver and Annette Bening, obviously the American President.
One of your favorite movies, Silence of the Lambs, another amazing
Silence
movie.
of the Lambs,
Yeah.
I love. Yeah, Working Girl. Like there were a lot of these. I didn't realize it at the time that I was like watching all these powerhouse actresses, Frances McDormand, like Holly Hunter, do these performances, and that certainly had a big hand in it. But also, Scream.
Oh yeah.
I love the Scream franchise. When I was in high school, we were so obsessed with the first Scream. My friends and I made our own film called Yell. It was not as good, but a close second, I think. Yeah.
I was born in 1991, and I was living in New Zealand when I was a wee lad, and the Lord of the Rings movies were coming out. And that was hugely inspiring because the whole nation just united around this one significant cultural event. Like that was making international headlines suddenly happening in the country. But like, what was great is when they came out on DVD, they had all these special features, and it just that was really what got me excited of realizing that films are made by people, and people are making models, and people are building costumes and that sort of thing. And that was sort of what made me realize, like, oh, if I just got a camera and kind of made some costumes, make some miniatures, I could maybe like sort of make something. So I think like the behind the scenes boon of the like Millennium
DVD extras.
again, not a great film, but the Attack of the Clone special features. Fantastic stuff there. That really inspired me.
For me, that was IFC on TV. They would play movies with like people doing the commentary track on IFC on TV. So I would watch a movie like Sid and Nancy with that commentary track. I was obsessed with that kind of stuff. And it was so interesting. It was like, you're talking, it's your son, the director here. You're giving like, and then I thought I could just make miniatures. I was like, and then I thought I could talk about my own movie after I make my movie.